The power in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus is my shepherd, I shall not want. It maketh me to lie down in green pastures, it leadeth me beside the still waters. It restoreth my soul, it leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for its name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Christ is with me. Its rod and its staff, they comfort me. Christ preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Christ anoints my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely and certainly goodness shall continue to follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent power, force, and source of love and creation forever. What's happening? Benton here, about to pull out of the rest area, waiting for my pre-trip inspection to finish. Yes, there we go, 15 minutes. You may proceed, sir. Had a lot of fun yesterday fighting traffic. Sunday driving can be annoying. Road trippers. I guess this close to the navigating the road. Bear with me one moment. Royal speed here. Yeah, driving yesterday through Texas, south side of Austin, then through Austin, which there was no traffic going through Austin, really. There was traffic, but nothing crazy. And after that, all the way to Dallas almost was, we'd be cruising along, and then just for seemingly no reason, all of the traffic would almost come to a stop. So it was just this like repeated series of slamming on of the brakes. Uh, for basically no reason other than I'm assuming how distracted all of the drivers are. Chain reaction of, and something I've noticed, braking begets braking. When I try to strategically slow down and there's cars next to me, typically they also slow down. If I brake heavy, they'll usually brake heavy. So I'm assuming it's mainly just chain reaction, miniature traffic jams for no actual reason other than my brain works most of the time, and most of these people's brain never works. Never ever. Rarely, if ever. And then attempting to exist in society that's comprised in large part of individuals with non-functioning brains. This morning I listened to and I guess it's still nighttime for some. This morning, listened to uh, what's the guy's name? The YouTube channel, something reality. I forget the. I don't even remember the name of the channel. It's a fella in his 20s, and thinks for himself and probably understands more about the nature of this realm and the lack of meaning and lack of substance. He seems to be talking a lot lately about the gaslighting, although that's my term, not his. The ways in which society gaslights people, especially with respect to capitalism. And even to say capitalism in anything short of a strictly positive or desirable sense is to immediately cause the brain to do what? The brain immediately leaps to the idea, well, communism's bad. Well, who's talking about communism? This is America. The system is purportedly capitalist. So why the mention of communism? Well, because the mind control and the psychological control operates based on capitalism has to be valid because communism is invalid. And communism would be considered the inverse or opposite. So you have the two seemingly opposing forces that are both functions of authoritarian government. Tragic Reality, that's the YouTube channel. Tragic Reality. Is that like Beautiful Disaster? Is that one of those type of names? I kid. No idea if he listens to this or not. Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? And I find it instructive to observe the psychology and the mind control around even discussing capitalism. So his most recent video has capitalism in the title. And I prefer descriptors like vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. And that's, as far as I can tell, that's how this place functions. And then America, of course, maybe a little more emphasis on the adversarial and the business transacting. Perhaps. And then we have a concept of nihilism. So as far as the gaslighting, it's to have a YouTube channel where this guy earns a side living. He earns an income rather, making these YouTube videos, sharing his thoughts. I don't know how much it makes a month. In revenue. Probably not an insignificant amount for beings who are able to live frugally, anyway. And to accurately describe this system of things, well, he's talking about how immediately the defenders of the system, NPC normies, the defenders of the system say, okay, well, maybe ideas around it's no longer really possible for most people to work one 40-hour job and pay their rent, feed themselves, and meet their basic expenses. And so immediately the defenders of the system gaslight and attack by saying, okay, well, get a better job, go back to school, get a second job, do a side hustle. Because the meaning, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, let me set this up, if I may. And so examining from their perspective, why are they responding this way? Why is it an immediate verbal attack to put the other person on the back foot? So you have tragic reality person A remarking to person B, or maybe just reading his YouTube comments section, perhaps. And person B immediately starts doing what? So the moment that the person B responds to tragic reality's assertions, regardless of the accuracy of the assertions, their response is representative and of something with meaning with respect to their own individual motivations. And then those motivations are always framed within the system of things. And then we get into motivations and what's in it for them and why are they responding. Number one, why respond at all in that way? And some might say defensively, but the best defense is a good offense. What is authoritarianism? That's assertion, aggression, and dominance. So any defensive-ness on the part of individuals freely serving capital, corporatism, hand, the state of, the thing that executed Jesus for sedition, the state of, right? That thing? Interesting. So to come to that system's defense reflexively through a means of assertion, aggression, dominance, defensively based on the best defense is a good offense. Well, now we have a structure that lines up with my prior assertions that you cannot have authoritarian society or government or systems without an authoritarian populace, where individuals that comprise the masses have internalized authoritarianism. So what I would ordain as a spiritual attack directed at tragic reality, the motivation is actually based in these individuals have no choice but to defend what I know to be an indefensible system, depending upon the perspective and thought processes and logic and reason and intuitions of whomever may be providing critique and criticism of the system or systems. So what is the motivation of the attack? It's to cause this content creator term and to shut the fuck up and to acquiesce and submit to the authoritarian demands of the system, while simultaneously the system gaslights by convincing everyone how free they are. So presumably all individuals are free to think for themselves and to reach their own conclusions. And I would say that yes, within the internal space of any individual, in this case, tragic reality as an individual, no one has any power whatsoever to intervene internally with those thought processes. So I would say it seems to me like any strife or struggle or resistance occurs, and this is not by way of error, it's when the individual tragic reality who exists within society, like it or not, and also society exists within tragic reality to some extent, like it or not. No choice on that. They say, what do you mean? Well, the psychology, the human, contained within the human is a psychology that is a product of this system. So it is to be defeated in a way from day one. Meanwhile, what I am will only ever know victory. So when I talk about defeated from day one, now I know it's in the context of delusion. Defeat only exists from the perspective of what I am. It only happens within the context of delusion. There can never be a discussion of an experience of defeat outside the context of delusion, resolving and reconciling for waking dreams, surrealistic unreality, deja vu all over again. See, now we're applying, now the royal we ruthlessly applies the tracking of details, expertly speaks from a specific perspective within multiple contexts, a Russian nesting doll series of contexts. And this is a form of intelligence. My brain works. An operating brain. To expect, and I'm not saying that tragic reality is doing this, to expect NPC normies to operate on these levels of intelligence, well, that's not possible, and I will explain why it's not possible. It's because meaning, from the perspective of the NPC normie, is always tied up in the system, meaning the individual must, in order to status quo, social contract, conform to peer groups, and thus to not be blasted with fear, guilt, shame via mockery and ridicule, the individual, the NPC normie's actions and behaviors have to be performed on the basis of assertion, aggression, dominance, assertively affirming the meaning, substance, validity, abundance, and blessing of a world that doesn't know the first thing about any of that whatsoever. And this cannot be debated. For in order for that to be debatable, this system must spiritually represent a tree that is good. And the only way for this metaphorical tree to be good is it must bring forth fruit that at a consensus level would be accepted as good, nutritious, abundant, sustaining fruit. And that has never happened. That will never happen, for that is not possible. Because this vacuous, which means empty and void, delusory, delusion, right? Imagined or incorrectly imagined. Imagined based on error, perhaps. Is Benton inventing his own definitions? I don't know. Perhaps. You know, this is the basis for the realm, and it's based on, so good fruit would be what? Abundance. This realm is based on the fruit of abundance spoiled or lack of abundance. And so the hollow, empty, void, delusory realm can't bring forth fruit in the first place. Why not? Because it does not possess creative force or creation and expansion. All creation and expansion is the spirit of what I am, and that is an indivisible force. And in fact, all phenomena whatsoever are contained within the force of what I am. Love, authority, everything that seems positive or desirable will contain, you cannot have an idea of something being positive or desirable or good without antithesis or opposite or inverse, which would be not spoiled fruit, the lack of the potential or ability to bring forth fruit through assertion, creation, really creation. So life is required, life force is required to create or grow or germinate the fruit, whether good or bad. So the source of the fruit is always the spirit or force of what I am. So now we have antithesis or lack as subverting the grower, the mechanism, the energy, the means of creating and growing the fruit, whether metaphorical, literal, or both. In this context, and these details are very important. And so the defenders of these indefensible systems will never operate within those contexts and will never track those details unless they are forced to. Because remember, law operates, so-called natural law operates, where these entities have no choice but to follow law and pronouncement and commandment. And there's your authoritarianism. Authoritarianism means these individuals and these structures and these antithesis on behalf of antithesis It has no choice. It operates at the level of authoritarianism, which is to take orders and to give orders. And also the spirit of what I am neither takes orders nor gives orders. For love knows nothing of control, and love knows nothing of being controlled. So where there is control, whether assertive control or passive control, there can not be love. It ain't possible. Only lack of love, which is authoritarianism, whether in acquiescence or the yin form, which is to receive the orders of authoritarians, or to shift to the yang or masculine or assertive form and to assert authoritarianism by barking and directing and commanding. See? So when tragic reality observes and reports based on his own ability to think, reason, and intuit and perceive and create and expand, and to do this lawfully, and may at times be doing this based on the spirit of what he would most likely have to be, one with the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation, supreme authority. The force that antithesis subverts through authoritarian means based on the lack of the bringing forth of good fruit. It's not a refusal to bring forth good fruit. It's the inability to do that because of the lack of creative force. So then to act within this delusion, antithesis must act to subvert, to overthrow, to upheave, right? An upheaval, to judo, to wait for creation, love, authority, and assertion to come running and sprinting towards antithesis, and then antithesis can pull a judo move and use assertion's own momentum against it via subversion, by installing coercively and through subterfuge and deception psychologies, because within delusion the being leaves the mother's womb, another word for matrix, and is delivered into this matrix, with seemingly having their memory wiped, and then a brain that operates based on a psychology that was designed by antithesis and installed within a delusion that's operating in service of antithesis or Satan or evil. The inverse of to live, right? Because what I am is already living. In fact, it's never not living. In fact, it never ever performed anything other than a supreme, ultimate living, right? That's its nature, Mr. Beal. Beal, not Saturday Night Live. Oh no, Mr. Beal. What was that, Gumby? Oh no, Mr. Bill. The realm has a sense of humor. So back to meaning, substance, value, and lack thereof. So what is the theme of the systems that are indefensible from the perspective of what I am? And I mean indefensible at the level of invalid. Now, what is the word in English for invalid? Well, it also means invalid, which is what? A person lying perhaps on their deathbed who is incapable of arising physically and taking action. An invalid, perhaps convalescing in efforts to be restored. Right? Well, what is Christ? Christ is that restoration. The invalid lies in bed based on a lack of what? The lack of the risen, resurrected Christ within the individual, and that creates the invalid condition whereby now the physicality, whether literally, metaphorically, or both, is in bed convalescing, existing perhaps between stasis and anti-stasis, suspended animation. Oh, that sounds a lot like animated death, death warmed over. Seems like within delusion, the spirit of what I am, having been convinced via these system of things and Moloch's machine and its psychology in service of its machinery to convince motion, perpetual motion, hey, why don't you lie down over there and let the dystopia wash over you? That's where meaning lies, in that, on that deathbed, sir or madam. Meaning is deathbed. So what's the being taught from day one? Hey, buddy, this is your life, and it's also your deathbed, meaning everywhere around you are the symbols of death. And here's your parents. They're tasked with raising you up in a world of death within games of lies as you seemingly hurtle towards your own death. So now it's what? Community, neighborhood, family home, parents, siblings, community as what? Deathbed. An invalid. Right? Because left to the being's own devices, the being is a perpetual motion machine. What does the child want to do, especially the male child? Rush around to and fro, here and there, exploring, right, into everything. What is happening, questioning, right, playing, disrupting, right, order out of chaos, right? So this so-called life, which is an extended or protracted experience of death, will say, sir, this is a deathbed. What are you doing? You're an invalid. And you're an invalid because we, meaning the system, needs to teach you how to create and craft a graven image based on this invalid realm. And the only way to do that, sir or madam, little sir or madam, is to express as an invalid based on the invalidity or lack of substance or lack of meaning or lack of creation of a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, whereby the spirit of what I am, in order to cope and to avoid treating the blessing of what I am as if it were a curse, blasphemy in the Holy Spirit being the only so-called unforgivable sin, in order to not make a bastardization of what I am. See, the being is forced into certain levels of performance. See, this is the trickery and deceptions of the realm. So now we see the structure of the normie, right? Because the normie can't process the possibility of an external lack of meaning. And now we have capitalism as an external system that all individuals must, by necessity, within delusion, operate within. Meanwhile, capitalism and delusion only ever operate within what I am, based on a subversion of the creative force of what I am, which is how this place exists in the first place, because it's the subversion of the creative force that creates the delusion in the first place. Because what I am is never not creating or birthing or expanding. See? So now we have the idea, well, sir, you're masculine, you're man, you are assertion, you are yang. Well, except for the creative force of what I am gives birth and creates. That seems like mother to me. Huh. Wait a minute. And of course, gender belongs to delusion. See, gender belongs to delusion, because gender is dead. Everything that traces its origins to this delusory realm is dead by nature. Man is dead as a race. So man, presumably containing biological male and biological female, that's dead. What are you talking about? So a trans person or a Z-zer or a they, them is just as dead as he, she, as he, him, or her, she, or whatever the fuck it is. It's all the same. Now, does some of it line up more congruently with the physical and the hormones and the way that we've been taught that the physicality operates? Sure. It's still dead and it's still within delusion. So who cares? But now we're into disorientation. MAGA's not trying to go into those levels of disorientation. It's too disorienting. So if I'm willing to accept that, well, the idea of even being a man is so ridiculous and fallen and wicked and depraved and is based on death itself and delusion, however, the being is still performing on that basis, well, how is it any more valid? Actually, it's equally invalid that somebody says, well, they are a trans person. Why? That's their creative force doing that. Because it's the subversion of the creative force of what I am that created man in the first place. So how is it ever inappropriate for within delusion the idea that it's even possible to individuate or break off a chunk of an indivisible force? Because as Christ noted, if hate can drive out hate, then Satan's kingdom is divided against itself. How can it stand? So now we know the inverse of that idea means that creation itself must be indivisible. It can't be divided, or it can never stand, meaning it can never be valid. Now, the secret of what Christ was asserting, it's also a wink and a nod to the lack of substance or meaning that antithesis is personifying or is epitomizing. See, in fact, its secret is that it never stands. It only subverts or upturns, or it's only engaged in a judoing and an upheaval. And we see that with these individuals in the so-called truth community who think they are debating when all they do is take the back foot, or not even take the back foot. They always attack by asking questions. That's to judo the other person. That's to take the asserter and to ask questions. The asking of the question is to invite the other person to assert while refusing to assert. If I refuse to assert and invite you to assert, the moment you assert, now I can grab onto your assertion and redirect it if you allow me. And so now we have the entire reason for the existence of authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is the judo. It is the means whereby evil or antithesis goes the fuck out of love, assertion, creation, authority, and validity or life. See, through invalidity or deathbed, all they that hate, air quotes, so-called God love death. They love being invalids. They love their deathbed. In this case, capitalism. So to say, oh, what do you mean capitalism is bad and wicked and fallen? Are you saying that communism is valid and good and will sustain? No, you're saying that. Stupid. Because communism is a system of man, and man is a dead product of delusion. Therefore, communism is equally wicked and fallen and can never bring forth good fruit because it cannot be a good tree. It can't ever create a good tree. It's not possible. See? Cannot happen. So now we see the motivation of the defenders of the system. It's to say whatever they need to say to get people like me or Tragic Reality to shut the fuck up. However, Benton at the age of 50 is a little more ornery, and having already experienced death based on being not accepted, but being treated to what this realm says is acceptance, which is to not be mocked and ridiculed quite so much, to not have as much fear, guilt, and shame directed at the individual through mockery and ridicule. And to be somewhat socially successful, what does that even mean? What does that mean? Right? And I'll get to that in a moment. And again, it's always within the context of delusion. Always. Waking dreams, surrealistic unreality. Deja vu all over again. It's never completely real. It seems very real, so what? Oh, well, I left my mother's womb and came into this matrix, and all of these things seem to be happening. That doesn't mean that real things are happening. Why? Because based on delusion and the lack of substance and the lack of creation and the lack of authority and the lack of justice and the lack of love, things seem to be happening at a level of imagination. That means that they're happening. Bullshit. Bullshit. Until that's proven, I am not willing to take anybody's word for it. And that's the spirit of, air quotes, so-called God. You got to show me, Jack. That truth is so powerful, these people can't even pass me in their car because it's so attractive that they have no idea what I'm saying. And it's so powerful and attractive, they can't even get the fuck away from me. And that's real. See, they tried to hang out. Still trying to hang out. And none of what I'm speaking on is resolvable at a group level, for there can never be a group, only one. Only the indivisible spirit of what I am. There is no group. There is no society. Now, there is based on what? Invalidity, deathbed, invalid, convalescence, the thing that must be animated death, death wormed over, a zombie, heal the flesh. What was Jesus after crucifixion executed for sedition by the state of the dead flesh in a cave blocked by a rock? A rock, right? In need of what? Restoration, repair, in need of healing, in need of resurrection. Let's see. It's a symbol of what this is. The flesh. Render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. Caesar rendered Christ's flesh, the so-called Son of Man. Caesar took measure of the fruit. Caesar saw the value of the tree and says, this is what I do with fruit. This is what I do with the fruit of the tree. I have it executed. But only after individuals at the level of consensus say, give us Barabbas. Give us the lover of the flesh. Give us our brother who will join us in enjoying the pleasures of the flesh and serve money, which is to refuse to serve, air quotes, so-called God. To refuse. That is the so-called rebellion or fall of man. To be judoed by antithesis. And have you considered my servant Job? Because the spirit of what I am can be judoed, but never in the long run, never judoed into expressing as something other than what it is. That ain't possible. That ain't possible. And if it becomes identified with the invalidity of delusion, well, it's not what I am. It's the antithesis of what I am, which is contained within what I am, because it has to be, because what I am can never be divided. It's indivisible. You can't even separate out antithesis. Only within delusion. See? Only within delusion is it seemingly separable. Same thing with God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Not possible. Jesus Christ, not possible. Saul of Tarsus, not possible. You, the listener, not possible. Benton, the broadcaster, not possible. The United States of America, not possible. Caesar, not possible. So render unto Caesar indeed. So that's Christ's dead flesh entombed. And what did they do, apparently? Not have to brush up on my Bible, but whether apocryphal, wrong saloon, partner. Wrong saloon. You're going to have to get the fuck away from me, buddy. I am not the flow of traffic. I'm a big rig. I am not the flow of traffic. You're going to have to figure it the fuck out. Because I ain't riding with you all the way to wherever the fuck we're going. So find another way home, buddy. So some notion of, maybe Christ's followers or his fans or whatever going into the tomb and trying to bring him back to life with, frankincense and myrrh and all of these things and oils, right? To attempt to restore the flesh, the dead flesh, right? So there's been some notions of, well, yeah, but Christ did rise from the dead, but actually he never died in the first place. Well, what Christ is can't die. So, yeah, in a way, that's correct. And the flesh can never live. So, yeah. Exactly. And what I am can never be defined or exist in relation to delusion. Delusion exists in relation to what I am. The inversion is to convince the spirit of what I am that it exists in relation to antithesis. And so when a regular person allows a trans person or a multicolored leftist to call them cisgendered, they don't even understand that they are allowing themselves to be defined based on the inverse of what they know themselves to be, which is to then deliver themselves into the hands of the enemy. And to say, well, what I am is the default. What are you talking about? You can be a trans person all you want. You don't then get to call me a cis person. I am. And what I am does not exist in relation to anything whatsoever. Everything else exists in relation to what I am. Let's see. This inverted realm, and we are now in Benton, Arkansas. The Royal We's now in Benton, Arkansas. And inversion must be accounted for. Always. George Costanza's opposite day. At a certain point, he realized his life was a disaster. If he would just do the opposite of his own instincts, in the short run, things would turn out, what he believed to be proper in the short term. So you cannot have meaning based on self-direction in this place, because this place is the lack of meaning. So in order to operate within the same form, there must be lack of self-direction. And that's the motivator for the defenders of the indefensible system, who tell tragic reality and gaslight and spiritually attack him. Oh, well, just get a better job, just do this, just do that. Basically what they're saying is shut the fuck up and define yourself based on the meaning that is asserted or seems to be asserted based, on behalf of this realm. What this realm asserts to be representative of meaning, which is what? So-called success and so-called production, right? So-called. But back to a point almost made 20 minutes ago, perhaps, to muddy the waters, and they refuse to define what do these terms mean. So what do they mean when they say be productive? What do they mean when they say success? Ask them, what do you mean by air quotes, be successful? Then shut the fuck up and do not argue. Use their own tactics against them. Judo them. Say, okay, listen to their explanation and then ask a bunch of questions. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this? Well, what about that? And eventually what we'll see is that the idea of producing for an invalid system representative of lack of life, aka death, well, this can't really actually be described in living terms. It ain't possible. Because it It lacks that. So what can happen is a muddying of the waters where a person says, oh, well, don't you want to be successful? Or, you know, we can't treat you properly based on status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups until you perform in a way that we can judge as, quote, successful. Okay, what is that? Please describe to me what you mean. They say, oh, it's common sense. I say, well, I must be a retard then because I don't know what you mean. Could you pretty please, with sugar on top, explain it to me? Meanwhile, if you can't even explain what you mean by be successful, I mean, how can you possibly expect me to perform a thing that you can't even verbalize? Specifically, I want to know, what specifically do you mean by success? What specifically do you mean by productive? Because the spirit of what I am doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about, because it is production. What I am will never lack production. What I am will never be unsuccessful. So it doesn't know what you mean when you make these assertions. See how it works? Three blind mice, right? Well, what are three blind mice? That's the realm. That's consensus. See how they run. Well, here comes Benton, or you, the listener, or tragic reality, with eyes, able to see. But because the realm is already operating at a level of consensus, well, what are the three blind mice going to say? Say, well, you can't operate based on that vision, sir. We don't know. Number one, we don't know what that vision is. We can't take your word for it that you have this vision. All we know is we do what we're told. We act based on what we're taught, and what we're taught is that all mice don't have vision. Mice don't even know what that means. So serendipitously comes Benton with his working brain, right? Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, in touch with the spirit of what he is, and the realm just gaslights and says, hey, buddy, we need you to shut your eyes and go along to get along. And in order to, quote, be successful and be accepted, meanwhile, to be accepted is to merely mean we won't attack you at the level of fear, guilt, and shame via mockery and ridicule if you shut your eyes and run around like we run around, right? Grasping at straws, engaged in folly after folly after folly. Fa la 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 la. See. Otherwise, we don't know what the fuck is going on. We don't know what you're doing, sir. We can't even see what you're doing. We're listening for sounds. We're touching, tactile. We're seeing, we're engaged in the flesh, right? We're not involved in that third eye vision. We're not, through a glass darkly. Now we see through a glass darkly. Well, the blind mice don't see at all. The being with sight and a psychology of Moloch's machine, that's to see through a glass darkly, right? We're talking about, how can the spirit of what I am ever conduct its affairs based on the notions of beings who don't even have the sight to see through the glass darkly, right? And the light of the body is the eye, right? The idea of what? consciousness, awareness. Clearly, the higher chakras. What's the flesh? The lower chakras. It's all vibrating energy. It's all vibrating energy. So the people who are identified with this delusory world, delusion, illusion, that's the lower chakras. That's the slower moving vibrations. What I am is the quickening spirit. See? To raise the consciousness, to raise the awareness is to tap in and tune into higher vibrations while what? Remaining grounded, while still able to ground oneself in pseudo-reality, which is to what? To solve for mathematically and equationally, to reconcile always waking dreams, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again. That's the only way to not go insane. With all of this knowledge and being able to grasp all of these various, aspects and to track all of these details. Okay. And until anybody else can verbalize all of this, how can their worldview or what they subscribe to ever contain any validity whatsoever if they can't even describe it or explain it in excruciating detail? They may say, well, we don't want to. We don't like how it feels to explain it in excruciating detail. Exactly. And that's one of the many mechanisms that the system uses against the individual. That's the judo. The judo says, hey, don't worry about the excruciating details and the never-ending series of Russian nesting dolls of context. Just go ahead and relax and go to sleep and lay back and relax into, we will take care of it for you. Moloch's machine has provided a job and a family and a culture and a community. Just relax into that and it will take care of you. It will provide you. But in order for you to access all of that, you must define yourself in relation to all of that. And that operates within capitalism, money, so-called success, right? And the meaning is contained therein. And that's the subversion of the meaning that's contained within what I am, the creation and expansion, the living meaning, see, which can never be the deathbed. Antithesis is seeking to assert through the subversion of the creative force that meaning and validity is actually invalidity or deathbed. Life as deathbed. Life is a breakfast cereal. Mikey likes it. That's the protracted experience of death or deathbed. That's what this place is. Have you considered my servant Job? And then the Christian, when they invariably have problems and strife and contradiction and struggle within themselves, begins to blame what? Their own nature, to curse their own blessing. And their blessing says, well, did you talk to the criminal? Did you speak with the curse? Why are you bothering blessing with all of this? Blessing doesn't know what you're talking about. It's too busy blessing. Why are you over here talking to blessing as if it could possibly ever represent curse? Go talk to curse. Leave me the fuck out of it. Haven't I given you everything? I mean, You are what I am. After all, what else could you possibly need or want or desire? Oh, that's right. You've been tricked by antithesis into seeking meaning where no meaning can ever possibly exist, within the delusory and illusory space of lack of meaning, which is nihilism. It's to try to animate it death worm over nihilism, lack of meaning, to give birth to animate through a subversion of a creative force a lack of meaning, and to call it meaning. That is nihilism. That's a performance of nihilism, and the gaslighting is to tell Benton or tragic reality, hey, you're a nihilist. Say, have you talked to the criminal? Because what I am is meaning, so I don't know what you're talking about. Criminal. I don't know what you're talking about. Curse. I don't know what you're talking about. Death. I don't know what you're talking about. Invalid. Right? Get behind me, Satan. Because I'm too busy propelling and moving forward perpetually. I'm the one, I'm the force that's on the cutting edge and the vanguard. Hey, how about you get where you belong, Satan, in the rear with the gear? Ching! This is the word of God going out of my mouth like a sharp sword. Partner, what you gonna tell me? See? That's the spirit of what I am. And antithesis or Satan or lack can't stand against that force. It's only ever sliced and diced. So how about you go ahead and go back to your place where you belong, antithesis, in the rear with the gear. And watch the warrior of creation create. See? Watch me. See? And you will see authority. You will see meaning. You will see righteousness. I said it. The spirit of what I am can never express unrighteously. It ain't possible. It is perfected. It is perfected. What? There's only ever been one perfection, and it was Jesus Christ. Oh, you mean what I am is the way? You mean what I am is the truth? And what I am is the life? No one comes unto true knowledge of self except through Christ consciousness. Is that what you mean? Because if that's what you mean, all the better. All the better. Because all of that will never know unrighteousness, will never know anything short of 100% perfection, or the walking of the perfected path that lies within. If you are asserting or talking about anything whatsoever that represents even a 99% power level of a perfect manifestation of the spirit of what I am doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about. Huh? What? Because what I am is the walking of the perfected path that lies within. So when someone says capitalism, what do you mean capitalism is indefensible? and gaslights and attacks and says, well, we're going to need you to define yourself based on capitalism. Well, that's a violation, sir. That's to treat blessing as if it were a curse, sir. That's the only unforgivable sin, sir. Blasphemy in the Holy Spirit, or to walk the perfected path that lies within. And to do it in such a way to serve antithesis instead of serving thesis, proposition, creative force, the unfolding, perpetual expansion of what I am. And remember, I don't need antithesis. Antithesis needs me. What I am has no need of antithesis. There has to be antithesis, because if there's not antithesis, then it would be possible for nothing whatsoever to exist, meaning no assertion, no proposition, no substance, no meaning. And in fact, that's what antithesis is seeking to assert, but it subvert. See, do you see what's happening here? Spiritual warrior genius. They say, Benton, we've heard all of this. No, you have not. You've never heard this in the form in which this is being elucidated. No, you have not. I am that one. What I am is that one. They say, oh, he's starting to sound egoic. That's your perception. See? Only by identifying and aligning with the performer in the context of performance can there be arrogance or vanity or so-called ego. Right? What I am quickens and transcends and moves beyond all of that effortlessly in the moment. That is the walking of the perfected path that lies within. That is the walking of the perfected path that lies within. And the ones who will not or cannot walk the perfected path that may lie within them, all they can do is critique, question, observe the performance of Benton. See? And say, well, what about this? What about that? It's a sewing circle, right? It's the gossipers, the accusers, right? Those who can do, those who can't teach. Jack Talcott as death coach or life coach. See? Benton is his own death coach, and the flesh is a death coach, or like a coach out on the Wild West or whatever. A conveyance. The dead flesh is a death coach conveyance. Isn't that interesting? See? Do you see what I'm showing you here? You're never going to hear this anywhere else. Sorry. So when they lie and gaslight and say, sorry, Benton, I hate to break it to you, we've heard all this before. No, you haven't. Because if you had heard it, I would have heard it. Because I got a big old fat head start on you called, I've been on the internet every single day since 1994. Had a big old fat head start against you, boomers. So I don't know what to tell you. Because if you think you've ever heard it, there's no way I haven't heard it. And I'm hearing it for the first time, and it's coming out of my mouth. So no, you have not heard all of this. You've heard bits and pieces of it. Nobody's ever put this together in this form. Spiritual warrior genius. See? And what does this system say? Okay, that's great. We're going to need you to go ahead and define yourself based on make a job and be successful and earn money based on your ability to walk and convey and to perform all of this. And I say, well, that would be blasphemy in the Holy Spirit. That would be a violation of the Spirit of what I am. So that's not possible. Can't do that. That's not an option. So now what? What else you got? Realm. The realm's got nothing. This realm doesn't have anything to offer because this realm does not have the ability or the potential to bring forth, embody, or express meaning. It cannot happen. It's not possible. It can never happen. Right? Never. Not possible. So what exactly is there left for Benton to do? Not survive, not thrive, because what I am will never know anything but so-called survival. Right? In fact, that term really doesn't even apply. Really what we're talking about is in the context of a world of death and games of lies, we're talking about subsistence. To subsist. To subsist. Well, that's pretty fucking easy in my experience. And not even that desirable anyway. Okay, great. Subsistence. Wonderful. Who cares? Because it doesn't seem to be possible within the context of delusion to subsist indefinitely. So what's the difference? Now we're back to invalid or deathbed. Well, if this is a deathbed and one day the being's consciousness will leave and won't be in this delusory realm anymore, and time, space, location, place are also by nature delusory and illusory, then what's the fucking difference? What does it matter when this may or may not occur? It doesn't. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. And that's logic and reason. And good luck defeating that logic. Good luck. I don't think you're going to be able to do it. And so, surprise, surprise, they don't even try. So the defenders of this realm won't even attempt. See? Because that doesn't serve their master, which is death. It doesn't serve what they love, which is death. These are the lovers of death. It's what they are. And you know it based on how they perform. And they gaslight you and attack you, and it works because the being operates via a psychology that operates based on the subversion of the creative force into creating a being, right, that defines itself based on a human identity psychologically to uphold before Moloch a graven image to say, is this good enough? See, just like I'm driving this truck and there's pressure to go a certain amount of miles, in the time that's given by the government, and the company wants a certain thing, but then the people driving on the roads, they want to drive a certain type of way, and in order for me to do this safely, it makes it very difficult. It makes it quite difficult to safely drive at a speed that facilitates what the company wants. And so if I'm dumb enough to let the company gaslight me, then that becomes valid. See? But if I just say to the company, hey, man, I'm going to drive safe no matter what y'all say, and when a bunch of bozos just go whatever speed I'm going, and if I drive slow, I'm just going to fucking drive slow. Because I'm not driving at 3 a.m. surrounded by a group of drunks. Because that's not safe. So I will not do that. And if you don't like it, too bad. I don't know what to tell you. Find somebody else to drive the truck then. That's all I can say. Find somebody else to drive the truck. And that usually shuts them up, and if not, okay, I will do something else. Who cares? It's a protracted experience of death anyway. It's subsistence anyway. All I really care about is, am I going to be able to park this rig at this Walmart up ahead and get my supplies? That's what I care about. You know, the company's got me on a load that I can't even make. It's not physically possible to make the appointment time and adhere to the laws and regulations. Well, that's their problem. That's their problem. And then the broker, they have GPS tracking on my phone. They know based on where the rig is and based on the knowledge of the hours of service. They know, unless I'm a team, unless this is team drivers, this load will not be delivered on time. It won't even be delivered that same day. It's not possible. The dispatcher knew that when he put me on this load. But then the gaslighting is they're all going to pretend like I failed somewhere, right? When the thing's late. Right, well, what's my fault? I wouldn't tell you. And if I'm dumb enough to internalize those spiritual attacks, well, then they're valid on some level. That's how this place operates. I'm eating some blueberries. Yeah, buddy. Woo! So why would I listen to anybody, other than entertainment, of course? And this is entertainment. None of this is going to amount to a hill of beans outside of myself. Yes, for my own purposes within myself, the meaning, the creation, transcend, alchemize, the resurrection of the risen Christ within, all of these things. But yeah, I can listen to other content creators for inspiration, perhaps, or entertainment. But there's no join a group, resolve all of these things. And because that's just to seek to create, to stay in the same form, to continue to create a graven image to uphold before Moloch. And again, remember, we only measure in money in American society. If you can't measure it in money, it's not an accomplishment. It's not an attainment. So when somebody says to be successful, that means to eventually be able to do what you choose to do, to freely be able to do what you choose to do with your time, because you've served the system so thoroughly that the system has rewarded you with enough resources, seemingly, that now you get to just go kick it, right? So if somebody's born into wealth, it doesn't bother anybody that they get to kick it, right? Somebody who's just born into a wealthy family never busts their ass as long as they live up to whatever their family wants them to live up to. Nobody in America gives a fuck that they're not productive because their bloodline already produced in service of antithesis, death, and evil. And the way we know this is because there's a scoreboard called production via money, right? Units of debt, right? Render unto Caesar. Let the dead bury the dead. And Christ rendered unto Caesar. This is a point I tried to make earlier and we didn't quite get there. Christ rendered unto Caesar and said, here's the flesh. This is what you want. You want this dead flesh? Take it. It's dead anyway. Do with it as you see fit, Caesar. And Caesar did. That's all this is. On that level anyway. It's not all there is in its entirety. So unless the being, and that is to walk the perfected path that lies within. So anything short of that 100% righteous expression of walking the perfected path that lies within represents to make the tree rotten by what? By hating the perfected path that lies within, by hating, air quotes, so-called God, and to then serve money as God or master. That's what virtually every being is doing in America, is serving money. And some bloodlines have served it so thoroughly that now new people get made, and it's completely fine if they live a life of luxury. And so logically, how can it ever be wrong or bad for me to just say, fuck it, I'm not interested in being productive based on Federal Reserve notes and slaving away for corporations? And then I will only be gaslit, and they say, well, I guess you could work a little harder. You could work multiple jobs. You could start your own business. You can invest and take risk, all in service of what? God as money. To love money, which supposedly is the root of all evil, is to love money. Right? So now people are telling me that to resolve the human condition is to behave evilly, to behave like an evildoer by loving money, by serving money. Are you crazy? Yeah, they are crazy. They are crazy, whether they know it or not. And that's a violation. That's a violation. So will Benton violate what he knows himself to be? Will he rape himself, violate himself, right? And to affirm death and the only so-called unforgivable sin, right? Because everything else is to merely temporarily diverge or fail to walk the perfected path that lies within the context of delusion and illusion, right? Oh, but there was only ever one perfect being, and it's Christ, and you ain't him. Well, I'm not Benton. I'm not the dead flesh. I'm not a human. What I am is one with the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation, a quickening spirit. If you don't like it, fuck you. If you don't like it, not my problem. Let the dead bury the dead, render unto Caesar. Not my problem. They say, well, how are you going to feed yourself? I don't know. I've managed to do it for 50 years. I stopped working and still fed myself for however many years, and then went back to the workforce. And I quit my job and live in I exist in unemployment for I did it a whole year recently. Never went a day without eating. Oh, well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? I don't know. How did I do it for a whole year? I don't know, but I did it. Build a time machine and go hang out and watch. Can we face the reality that it ain't that hard to feed oneself? If you're talking about food to eat and put into the body, now what other type of food are we talking about? The food of acceptance into society? What do you mean acceptance? This world doesn't know what acceptance is. This world doesn't know what love is. This world can't provide any of that. Oh, you mean to eat on the dead forms of that? The lack of value, the lack of meaning, the lack of life, the lack of substance, the lack of abundance? To feed on that? No, I'm good. Y'all have at it. I'm good on all that. I'll let y'all have it. Render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. Y'all can have all of that death you want. More death for y'all. Why are you worried about what I'm doing over here? Huh? Oh, well, you got to do this and you got to do that. Motherfucker, I don't have to do anything within the context of delusion except basic bodily functions and live and die. That's it. And I mean live based on what this world says life is, and die based on what this world says death is. There's no requirements outside of that. They say, oh, well, what about the laws? Yeah, that's a negative motivation. That means just don't do the bad thing. They say, well, you have to file your taxes. No, I don't. I haven't filed taxes in 25 years. You know what's happened? Not a damn thing. Nothing's happened. Nothing has happened. I'm never going to file taxes again. I'm taking $1,700 a month from the system. I'm never going to pay income tax on this. If they figure out a way, if there's enough money in my account and they take it, render unto Caesar, so be it. Have at it. Take it. Other than that, I'm not giving it to them, and they can't make me. Say, oh, well, what about prison? What about this? What about that? What about it? You saw what they done to Jesus. What do you think they're going to do to me? That's biblical, Christians. That's biblical. If anybody doesn't like it, not my problem. And if the government shows up and says, hey man, how about that payment plan? We need you to pay these back taxes. Say, no, I'm good on that, but here's the dead flesh. You're welcome to it. That's Christ. That's the Christ story. Hey, you're welcome to the dead flesh. Take it. It's dead anyway. Who cares? Render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. When the lovers of death show up and want death, give them death. And that doesn't mean kill them. Let them have the dead flesh. Can't kill them anyway. You can't kill what never lived. How can what never lived in the first place be killed? It can't. Not possible. Desire, desire. Lord, I'm off the streets. Gonna go where the bright lights in the big city meet. With a red guitar on fire. Desire. It's a candle in my room. Yeah, I'm the needle and spoon. Over the counter with a shotgun. Pretty soon, everybody done got one. I'm in a fever when I'm beside her. Desire, desire, and the fever getting higher. Desire, desire, burning. She's the dollar, she's my protection. Yes, she's a promise in the year of election. Oh, sister, I can't let you go. Like a preacher stealing hearts at a traveling show. For love of money, 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 and the fever getting higher. Desire, desire. Hey, yes, sir. That's this world. That ain't me, Jack. I felt kind of funny even singing that. But I've heard it about a bazillion times. Desire. Desire. Never really knew the words. I just pulled the lyrics up. That's why I couldn't really keep the right rhythm, is because it's not really matching what I hear in my head. She's the dollars, she's my protection. Yes, she's a promise in the year of election. Oh, sister, I can't let you go. Like a preacher stealing hearts at a traveling show. For love of money, 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 money. And the fever getting higher. So yeah, the fact that this is all happening, and I left my mama's womb and was birthed into this matrix in 1975 does not validate anything whatsoever. It doesn't validate the dollars as protection. It doesn't validate the year of election. It doesn't validate any of this money or ideas of money or love of money or loss of money. That's consensus. Oh, it's happening. That's three blind mice. See how they run. Oh, look, folly. Burst into folly. Better join in the folly. Wouldn't want to spook the herd by failing to live up to the folly. Wouldn't want to spook the herd by failing to live up to the folly. Fa la 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 la. Give thanks. Put a tree in your house. Adorn it. Worship money. Worship consumption. How's that working out, humans? How's that working out, humans? Everybody's happy and contented, right? Well, yeah, the Brave New World, Huxley and Soma, sure, feeling fine. Medicated, sedated, right? Feeling fine. Medicated and sedated, feeling fine. Mighty fine, mighty fine. Desire. Keep overcharging my phones, man. It's supposedly not good for the batteries. It's funny though, I'm used to eating all this food, so I usually have 2 cans of apricots. I cut back to 1 can. My body's like, "Hey, where's the apricots?" It's expecting more apricots. I'm like, no, that's what you get, buddy. You need to trim up a little bit. Trim a pound or two of fat. Not much, just a pound or two. Just a pound or two. Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? I think I pretty much said it all. Guess I could have some more caffeine. Why not? Why not? Trying to figure out when do I want to get fuel. What time is it? Guess I'll wait till later. At some point, it'll be busy time, you know. I want to go when they're busy. Taking a look at my GPS, see where there's one down the road a ways. Wonder how far that is. Jackson, Tennessee. Let's see. How far to Jackson? Jackson, Tennessee. 2 hours and 45 minutes. The busy time. I just stopped. I don't want to stop again. How long have we been driving? 30 minutes. Oh. Well, I'm not going to wait that long to eat, though. So, probably I could stop and get fuel and make my food. Let's see. Is that this exit? That's this exit. Oh, I know where we're at. Okay. So there's another one closer to Memphis. Aha. That's what we'll do. Damn, dude. A couple of trucks coming in my lane over here. 2 in a row, man. What y'all doing? Yeah, we might as well do it now. Missed the crowd. Why not? It's not like there's an appointment time to make because it can't be made. So at this point, I'm not sure it matters. Although the more time I waste today, the later I have to start out tomorrow. It, I can't. Basically, makes it longer until I can start my 10-hour break. Ultimately, is what we're talking about. I think I hardly ever go to this one. This is Hazen, Arkansas. I'm from Arkansas. For people who may not know, first 35 years I lived actually in Arkansas. First 35 of my years only lived in Arkansas. If that's even the right term at this point, but my middle sister, growing up, had a real good friend from Hazen, Arkansas. So I always remember when I hear about Hazen, it makes me think of her. I think her name was Melody, but I'm not exactly sure. I believe that was the case. Yeah. All right, pump's out of order. So we won't be going to that. All right, here we are. How much battery we got left? All right, I'm out of here. Bye.